is Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen and Jacoby. What is it that we do? The people wanted a tight series. That's exactly what they've got after game 2. Obviously, the Warriors even the series at 1-1. But Jalen Rose, question for you. Who's the 31st team in the National Basketball Association?
The Golden State Warriors in particular, because the one thing they've done the last handful of years, Jacoby, is when they get into halftime, Steve Kerr and his staff does an amazing job of making adjustments. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the basketball knowledge, intellect, discipline. They seem to come out in that third quarter and treat it like you want every team to treat the first quarter. So many times we look at what's going to happen the last 2 minutes of an NBA game. 66% of the time when a team wins the first quarter, they win the basketball game. When you have a team like the Golden State Warriors that blitzes teams in the third quarter, that's just a mind-blowing dynamic. And if you think about it, so many times players and teams talk about winning the quarter. But you only got to win one. You only got to win one, especially when you're going to play like the Golden State Warriors did. And here's the thing. The Boston Celtics turned the ball over way too much, and they were forced turnovers. Yeah, they had 18, Jacoby, but 15 of those were steals. So what does that mean? Taking away the airspace of the Boston Celtics, forcing them to play in the crowd, forcing them to play with tempo. Steph Curry gets off to a great start scoring in both games. He leads the way. And then in the third quarter, the rest of the team starts to get confident.
Yep.
And then that's when Jordan Poole was able to start to get hot and make some plays. It was a great display of basketball by the 31st NBA team, the Golden State Warriors, in the third quarter.
Now, Jalen, we've been talking about the Golden State Warriors in the third quarter for, years, 6 or 7 years now. But one thing that was different about last night is they didn't just get hot shooting the ball. It was the way they locked up defensively. Usually when I think about the third quarter Warriors, I see the offensive side of the ball. Last night they were doing it with the defensive side of the ball. A lot of that had to do with Draymond Green, who had something to say about the way they approached game 2. Let's listen to Draymond Green.
Nah, we need that energy anyway. So for me to sit back and say, I'm going to push it to this edge and try to pull it back, that don't work. I got to be me. And so with the first tech, it is what it is. That's not going to stop me from being aggressive or doing what I do on the basketball court. Just got to live with the results.
Well, Draymond Green had his fingerprints all over this win. What is it that he brings to this team, especially when they need him to be physical and intense?
He's the anchor, right? See, the one thing about having the Splash Brothers is they're going to take and make shots from unlimited range. But you need somebody that's going to take the charge in court. That's Draymond Green. And the one thing about him is he's an equal opportunity agitator. I was sitting at the game and literally see him get into altercations with Tatum, Brown, Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, and I promise you, the Boston Celtics will be showing that footage to their team. And what they're going to say to their squad is, y'all let Draymond punk us. And after the first game, let's talk about the dynamic that changed overall. Al Horford ate Draymond Green's lunch in the fourth quarter in game 1. He made 6 threes, he made a baseline jumper, he got a couple of offensive rebounds, and he made Draymond Green virtually, he dominated Draymond Green. And so if you're Draymond, what do you do in the second game? Don't take 12 shots and miss 10 of them. Keep your shots down, keep your energy high, keep your defensive tenacity where it should be, because he's a replaceable player on their team. Yes, the Splash Brothers are obviously irreplaceable, but who up front can do what Draymond does? It was good to see Looney get a couple of baskets. It was great to see Gary Payton II return. Beliza gave him some good minutes up front. But Draymond Green was the person who was agitating, being the aggressor, being the defender, being the leader, being the toughness of the Golden State Warriors. And that guy was a catalyst for them tying the series.
You forgot one more Celtic that Draymond Green got into it with last night. Ime Udoka. At one point, they were going to commercial, and Draymond was talking to the head coach of the Celtics. You really felt like from the very, very jump ball that Draymond Green decided that he was going to bring the energy and the physicality that this team did not have in Game 1. And it led not just to a win, but it led to them really locking up the high-powered Celtics offense. You mentioned it earlier. They had 18 turnovers, and that turned into so many of the Warriors' points. What do they have to do to avoid this?
See, all turnovers are not created equal. And you know, I've watched too much, played too much basketball, and it's an obvious difference. That's why I don't love stats. I use them as a tool, not the toolbox. Because sometimes if you look and see a team had 18 turnovers, I mean, that could be a turnover where they're throwing the ball in the stands, where you still have to go against a set D. It could also be a turnover where somebody dribbles it off somebody's foot, but then it goes to the baseline, you secure the ball, and then you walk it up and set your offense. When you're stealing the ball, now all of a sudden you're in transition quick, because that's something you can't anticipate. So now you get the 3-on-2s, the 4-on-3s, you get the open 3, you get the pass to the wing, pump fake, somebody run at you, kick it to the corner, you get the dribble drive to the paint. And of course you should be enamored about the great three-point shooting of the Golden State Warriors. But where they gouge you at, Jacoby, is layups. They've been the best team in the restricted area and scoring inside the 5 feet in the NBA playoffs. The Golden State Warriors. So if, like Jalen Brown said, we got to take away their layups. And if you're giving them threes and you're giving them layups, plus you're turning the ball over, in particular, they're getting steals, you're just not going to win Game 2. And I want to give the Warriors a lot of credit for coming out and playing with a sense of pride.
They certainly did. Now, Jalen, Jordan Poole had a really rough Game 1, and he had a rough start to Game 2 as well. It felt like maybe the final stage was too big for him. Nope, he threw a pool party in the third quarter. What do you think about the former Michigan Wolverine?
I got to talk to nephew. I think he wear the smallest shorts in the NBA. I was looking at him I was like, yo, I'm glad he got on some tights under those things, because if he fall down, the camera going to be all up in his mix. But the thing is, Jordan Poole is one of those guys, unlike your brother. When he scores, it's loud. It's between the legs, behind the back. When he scores 4 points, you look up and feel like he got 12. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And the crowd gets energized, and then he's able to make a shot like he made at the end of the third quarter. A shot basically from half court. And again, I'm glad you said it. Non-existent in Game 1.
Yep.
Non-existent in the first half of Game 2. So what was the difference? The third quarter Warriors and the momentum of role players playing better at home. That was the difference. They needed it, because nobody's going to talk about this today because it's not fashionable. Clay can't really get off yet.
We'll be discussing that.
Okay. And so for a guy like Poole that can get his shots off the dribble in a different way than Steph Curry, it energizes and opens up the offense and gives them that secondary score. If Clay's not going to be that guy, Draymond's not called on to be that guy to help carry you to 107 points in the game.
And we've talked about this third quarter Warriors thing a lot. We've talked about it for years and years. But one thing that I'm old enough to remember, the first half of this game, where Jason Tatum looked like he was getting off. Remember Jason Tatum in the previous game was like a assist guy, like a Steve Nash facilitator? In the first quarter of this one, Jason Tatum was kind of getting whatever he wanted. He was hitting threes, looking good. Brown was looking good. But then the second half, they couldn't find the same production. What do you think about the difference between the first half Tatum and Brown and the second half Tatum and Brown?
The Warriors and Steph Curry have a splash brother. At the point for the Boston Celtics, they have a crash brother, Marcus Smart. So what does that mean? One has unlimited range and is known as the greatest three-point shooter that the league has seen. The other brings a defensive tenacity and is the defensive player of the year. He's not offensively driven like the previous point guards they had, like Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving, and Kemba Walker. So if these two guys have 36 points in the first half and only 9 points in the second half, I'm going to go deeper in the box score. Robert Williams III, who's playing injured. Like, I've been telling you this on and off wax. He's out there limping. Like, I applaud him for being out there, but don't be surprised if he misses the next game. Still had 2 points. Al Horford, who made 6 threes, I believe, scored over 20, led the team in scoring, had only 2 points. And then the guy I teed this up about, it's okay for Marcus Smart to be a lockdown defender. But if he's not going to score the ball, only 2 points, it exposes the fact that he's not going to be a guy that's going to break down the defense and get Tatum and Brown layups and dunks, or breastfeed, so to speak, the big fellas down low in Robert Williams or Al Horford. And so now all of a sudden, he's on the perimeter, he can't get off. Those guys have a big first half, and then they have nobody to create for them. So you put that on them, but you also need somebody to make the game easier for them. And when Smart isn't scoring and your other 3 starters have 2 points each, then you just don't leave room for those guys to make plays for themselves and for others. But I want to give all of the credit to the Golden State Warriors defense.
They played great defense. They got a must-needed win in Game 2. Jordan Poole started to get hot in the second half. Everything was great for the Warriors except Klay Thompson. They made a concerted effort to get Klay going, and he still didn't get going. How much is that a concern for the Warriors moving forward in this finals? We'll discuss that and much more right after this. You're watching Jalen and Jacoby.